Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stewart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look. All right, welcome everybody to this edition of Night Shadows. We have Augusto Perez and Larry Taylor with us tonight, and we're going to have a bang-up show. Lots of news. We're going to start, I think, with Earth changes. Things are accelerating. Earthquakes, volcanic activity, sinkholes are increasing, rifts are getting bigger. On and on and on it goes as the planet begins its expansion, I guess one could say, because I think the evidence is overwhelming that the Earth will and is now expanding. Hi, guys. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, thank you, Stewart.
Yeah, no problem. Augusto, you with us? Hello?
We may have lost Augusto.
Hello? I've lost everybody.
Oh, you can't hear. Can you hear me, Stewart?
I can hear you now.
Okay, I'm here. I think you must have lost Augusto.
Yeah. Well, what do? I guess I try to call him back.
Yeah, go ahead, and I'll just talk about the quake we had today, which was really interesting. Was originally a 7.3 magnitude, and then I think they dropped it to 7.1. But still, Kyushu, Japan, that's a big quake. And there was an earlier quake that really shook Japan too, about a 6.2, 6.5. They said. We're having a lot of that. We're having a lot of earthquake activity, and of course, Augusto has some information he wanted to share on some of that.
Yeah, I just tried calling back, and it won't, I don't know whether he's been cut off. You know, we're having so much of that now where, you know, it's getting more and more obvious what they're doing. And, you know, there are certain shows they just don't want up. Anyway,
I know.
Let me just try him again here. Hopefully he hung up. Dial. I'm new at this, so here he goes.
Hello?
Yeah, I think you dropped off. I'm not sure why. Are you live now?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Larry, can you hear? All right?
Oh, yeah. Yes, you're very clear.
Okay. Well, we were talking about earth changes. Let's go with what you were talking about on these earthquakes. And you join in anytime there, Augusto. Go ahead, Larry.
Well, I don't know. This recent swarm of earthquakes throughout the world, it's really, you know, it's of course we've had them before, and now we're having them again. You know, it seems like we go from a period of time, a season where, you know, we just get the little ones, you know, the 4-pointers, 5-pointers, maybe a 6-pointer. Now we're beginning to get the 7-pointers, and now probably later this year, you know, as we go forward, probably we will begin to see more of those 7.5s, maybe 8s, and because it seems we are entering a very dangerous time for earthquakes right now and volcanic eruptions and so forth. So this is something that we need to keep a close watch on, because California, bear in mind, has been given signs that he may be getting ready for a big one.
I had heard that. In fact, they're issuing some reports. There was a fellow years ago, actually now, but he was an earthquake specialist, what you call him, and he moved out of Oregon. He said that from all his research, he felt that there was going to be a huge quake along the Washington, Oregon, but in the ocean, and it would cause a major tsunami. He was looking at plates literally shifting as much as 800, maybe even 1,600 feet. Larry, what's your? Go ahead.
Well, what's so interesting is what you opened the show with, Stewart, is the fact that, Sandeo, I guess he was one of the original ones that brought in what was then a theory and now really has been proven true and even played out in a movie called 2012, is the sun causing excitation of the interior of the planet and causing this expansion. And, we've been seeing that for a number of years, and Augusto's right on what he's saying about it seems to come in like waves or patterns, and we'll have some, we'll have the smaller ones, then we'll have some big ones, we'll have some 6s and a 7 or 2, and bang, we'll have like an 8 or, maybe even close to 9, but they are predicting, and Marshall Masters, he also was talking about earth changes on the West Coast, and he got off the West Coast and moved more into the interior of the U.S. there, and also, Marshall Masters also ties this activity to, I guess he calls it Planet X or Destroyer, Nibiru, any of the names you want to use. He links it into the time frame, and that may be where Augusto is going a little bit too, is talking about Nibiru or, any of this data. We've certainly got some influence that has entered our solar system, and we know that, and even now, I saw some recent reports coming out, from scientists that are beginning to now acknowledge, and of course they're not saying Nibiru, they're saying another solar system in our solar system, and if people don't realize what that means, that's kind of like when I used to go bowling,
or playing billiards. The thing people have to understand, though, I think, is that the Lord has all of this under control totally, even, I think, down to the split second, to work out the agenda that he has in mind as we transition into the millennial age, which is really what this is all about. We are in a phased transition going into the millennial age, hence Israel reforming in the Middle East, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Augusto, what would you say to what Larry said?
Well, the interesting thing about this is that, until maybe recently, of course, and it happened years ago, astrophysicists and people began to talk about Planet X, and they were quickly disposed of, mysteriously dying, and then he quieted for a while, and only, the watchmen and people like us who would talk about it, and not even all watchmen, just a very few, select few, you, Larry, me, and maybe a couple more, 2, 3 more. Otherwise, you wouldn't hear a lot of people talking about this. Nobody wanted to touch it with a 10-foot pole because, people would ridicule them, people would laugh, and they would lose prestige, credibility, and so forth. And but recently, what I am seeing is that, again, scientists are beginning to jump in the bandwagon. People like, for example, Daniel Whitmire now has been saying, of course, who is Daniel Whitmire is a retired astrophysics professor. And so he believes that this Planet X, he refers to it also as Planet 9. He believes they are one and the same. And, and some people believe that that is the case. Others do not believe it. I was talking to Larry about it not long ago, and, I can accept either one. I mean, this Planet 9 could be Planet X. Maybe it is not Planet X. Maybe it is another object approaching Earth, which is going to be very interesting if you have a mini solar system. And then you have another planet from somewhere who has an orbit of between 10 and 1,000 years and 15,000, I think they said. It is going to be very interesting when these two objects begin to make an approach. And this is what Daniel Whitmire, he is an astrophysics professor, retired, and he's been talking about it. And he's talking about the fact that this object has caused mass extinctions on Earth before and could do so again. And so he has been making some very bold statements recently. And Of course, some people disagree with him, but he makes a lot of he's saying a lot of things that make a lot of sense, like all these orbital anomalies. That this object is how it is impacting other planets, which indicates the presence of a very large unknown planet beyond our solar system in the Kuiper Belt. And then, of course, the scientists before him from Caltech, Mike Brown and Konstantin Bagin, who analyzed and discovered this so-called Planet 9. And so this is the difference that I see now, Stewart and Larry, that was not happening, say, 3 years ago or even 2 years ago. Some of these scientists now are beginning to get on the bandwagon, and they're saying, we have discovered it, we have proof, blah, blah, blah. And so now it is becoming a little harder for the establishment elite to cover this up anymore. People are beginning to upload videos and photos, and I sent you both a copy of that video. And, I mean, it's getting to the point, I think, that it is almost impossible to debunk all of these videos. I mean, you saw this one had the reflection of this, second sun on the water, on the sea. Yeah. And so it's getting to the point where I don't see how they can continually debunk this thing successfully. They're going to have to come up with some other way of dealing with this.
Well, what was interesting, too, is that somebody in Canada, or a bunch of people in Canada, saw a red planetary-type object pass through their skies not very long ago. Larry, did you see anything about that? But it went very, very fast, I guess, pretty much from horizon to horizon, which it would if it was one of the moons or something of that nature. And this system is already much closer than people think it is.
Yeah, I saw that report, and I've also seen a report or two about someone that was very high up. I don't remember now, 38,000, 40,000, something feet, in a plane that saw something, and I think took a photo of it, and there's instances, and that this is ongoing, and I'll tell you what's interesting to me is the fact that they had run a Torah code, and I hadn't thought about this for quite a while. Augusto talked about, I remembered him having a spiritual experience where he saw two objects collide, and I really didn't think about that. And there has been movies in the past, years ago, 20, 25 years or longer, where something hit a comet, and not when worlds collide, but it was something hit a comet and caused a trouble. But lately, Rabbi Glazerson ran a very interesting Torah code, and he came up with, and this is what he came up with. 5776 was the year. He came up with Nibiru, which people say is some call a planet, some call a star. However, the wording was threat of a star, and then comet Shavit, which you got. That to me indicates two different objects. And see, I had never thought about two different objects being out there. Now, if you want to really cause some chaos, instead of one thing coming through or another portion coming through, have some things begin to run into each other. And, I wonder, too, and this is thought, I appreciate you guys' opinion on this. For some interesting reason, they found this place called Sedna way out there and called it a planetoid. And then all of a sudden they erased Pluto as a planet and said, well, it's not a planet. And do they know that something in the entering from the Kuiper Belt or somewhere out in there may collide with Pluto, and really it won't be there anymore, and it won't be a planet, because right now it really is, other than name. But, Augusto, this kind of clued me in when they come up with the Torah code with two different seemingly objects. You might have a star and a planet or a few planetoids around it, a little mini solar system, and then also a comet involved. So, maybe this scenario, maybe it's a good thing, and I agree with Stewart, that the Creator is in control, and I do believe that, because, listen, wow, this is like a shooting gallery.
Well, that's exactly it. It's like a shooting gallery or like a pool table when all the balls all start moving. I mean, of course, you see those expert billiard pool tables players that they know how to hit the right angle and the right spin and all that, and of course, the Lord is able to know how the dynamics and the astrophysics of it all, how it all works. But it's not as simple as people think it is. Remember that our solar system is traveling through space, and the Milky Way is also moving. I mean, everything is moving. The mini solar system is moving in. So all these things have orbits, and they're moving continually. So it is very, very, very a complicated dynamic that involves all of this. And scientists, they don't know. I mean, they tell us, no, it's not. It's going to miss. It's not going to. But really, it is very, very, very difficult to be able to tell these things, because of the complexity of it, of the orbitals of it, and the spin of it, and I mean, so many factors involved in it. But the thing that I see happening is that there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of stuff out there that we have not encountered in times past. I mean, once in a blue moon, a comet came by, maybe one little meteor crashed somewhere, but we are seeing now a lot of meteor sightings. We are seeing a lot of these objects in the heavenlies, different ones, because sometimes they have videotaped this object that has like stripes on it, very, very strange looking one. Others sometimes are smaller and kind of bluish. Sometimes they have seen ones that are like a sun. They're very, very bright. They're kind of reddish and very bright. So there's a lot of objects out there right now, and they're chemtrailing the heavens left and right, trying to cover these things, but it is becoming almost impossible. I would say that in a matter of months, maybe by next year, this thing is going to be impossible to cover up, and maybe that is what why they're preparing, I guess, warming the engines for martial law, and with riots in the streets and jade hail and what have you. Because remember that they have to shut everything down 6 months prior to this event taking place.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I think that, I think there's a lot of confusion, but it seems to me that what we have is a brown dwarf star, and it has got its own planetary system. It's got its own asteroids, it's got its own comets, it's got its own space debris, and that, as it enters into our system, is probably why we're seeing so many fireball reports now. I mean, just about every week, somebody somewhere, and they had an impact event, didn't they, Larry, in an ocean not very long ago?
No, in the Atlantic, they had an impact.
And it was a fairly substantial impact, was it not, if I remember? Nobody saw it.
Yeah. And, we've had some recently, too, and, of course, we can't get good news out of there, but in Iran, there was a field of these things hit in Iran, and pocketed a number of places, and we got scattered reports out, but there are impact events happening, and space weather, they note them a little, but not much.
So they're playing it down.
Oh yeah.
And probably don't report it unless they actually have to. It's sort of like what's going on with the earthquakes. You may see it and you may not, and of course Stan Dale and Holly both proved that they were, how do we say, vanishing earthquakes? that had occurred in the reports.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are stopping reporting these things. Like Stan Deyo stopped reporting on all these things completely. James McCaney stopped reporting on all these things completely. I don't know. I haven't spoken to Stan about it. Certainly have not spoken to James McCaney. But I find it kind of interesting that as these things begin to ramp up, some of these experts supposedly that should be, the ones telling the people, they're what they think, what they believe, they're becoming silent all of a sudden, and so I don't know. I don't want to guess. I don't want to say anything because I don't know, but it all sounds very strange to me.
Well, he was very loud, James McKinney was, about Planet X. He's even written several books on it.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden he pretty much denies it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I suppose when you take a look at this, you can be paid a visit. I had a friend of mine who developed a battery for an electric car that he had designed. And I think the battery, he said, would last at least a week, if not more, and you could drive it hundreds of miles without recharging or anything. And the government came along and said, you're not going to build it, or else. So they have their ways,
That's right.
of silencing people. So, but how do you stop this when you have such an uptick in Earth events? I mean, we're seeing radical weather. They can blame it all they want on climate change and mankind's, using fossil fuels, et cetera, but I don't think it has anything to do with that. Do you?
Well, I'll tell you what.
You mean?
Go ahead, Augusto.
No, I better not say. Go ahead, Larry.
I was just going to mention that my personal opinion, and I want people to know that this is only Larry Taylor's opinion. This is not the gospel, and this is not, of course, secret information or above top secret. I really do think that this climate change agenda that the elite and, of course, Obama and his administration and all are putting such stress on and trying to promote to the degree that other people, something's mentally wrong with them if they even would question it. I really think that this is a cover-up for an Ellie event like Deep Impact, the movie Deep Impact, Ellie. An extinction level event that might be possibly down the road. And this is their term, climate change, that they're using now, to get things ready and move in that direction. And also to, with the climate change, have we not seen a lot of, especially Obama, but the world leaders promoting these new bills and laws that lead into this type of an activity? More control.
Yeah. I don't know, Larry. I mean, you got Agenda 21, Agenda 30, Agenda 50, all of which are clearly designed for the United Nations takeover of the planet. And, of course, that may answer why, I don't know. Have you heard any more? We're kind of wandering around here, but have you heard any more about Obama seeking the chairmanship of the United Nations, Augusto or Larry, either one?
I think he's still pursuing it, but again, the jury's still out. I think he still has that on his agenda, one way or the other.
Yeah, that's actually this year. Ban Ki-moon, his term expires this year, I believe in close to December or somewhere in that time frame, and the latest I've heard is that Obama's still focused on that position. So I guess we'll see where it goes. But interestingly, too, bringing up Obama, there's been a recent report out from Israeli news that Obama is seeking some type of revenge against Netanyahu over the recent situation in the Middle East, and also, I don't know if you've seen it yet. There's a brand new meeting coming up the 21st of April, which is just days away. Netanyahu is flying to Moscow to meet with Putin in secret. So there's a lot of things on the agenda. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead, Augusto.
No, I am agreeing with Larry that he still has on his agenda to be the ruler of the New World Order. I think he may have a notion that maybe he is the one that is going to to be over the New World Order. Maybe, of course, this has been spoken in years past by Kissinger and others. That have mentioned Obama as the one that was going to lead us into the New World Order, and so maybe the Big O has his ideas that he is the man that is ordained, by the gods, little g, to to be the ruler of the New World Order. But that remains to be seen. I don't know. I really don't know if he is the one. He certainly has a lot of things that he has spoken and has done that maybe some people think they qualifies him, but I still think that that person is someone else that is going to maybe take over this Pope, or it's going to, because I do believe that the Catholic Church, what is known as the system of the Catholic Church, the papacy, I do believe that is going to come to a halt. It's going to cease to exist in order for them to usher in their New World religion. And so, of course, this is the last Pope, according to the Malachi prophecy. And a lot of people say this Pope is the false prophet or the antichrist, and some have even said that this is in the Malachi prophecy. But that is not true. The Malachi prophecy never said that this last Pope was going to be the Antichrist. Some people have said that, have added that, but I don't believe that is what the Malachi prophecy said. I believe it says that this Pope was going to lead the Catholic Church, the people through turbulent times, tribulation. And but I believe that the next guy, whoever takes over the New World religion, that is going to take place for sure, because all the religions have to, they have to come together. And so this Pope is, he's doing all the legwork. He's doing a lot of legwork for it. He's reaching out to the charismatics and the Protestants and this and that, and the Hindus and the Buddhists and even the Muslims. But I truly believe that the guy, the one is yet to appear. Now he is here on the planet, and he's probably getting prepared, getting prepped up to be to make his appearance. But this guy, when he appears, he's got to be much more than just a pope. He's got to be the leader of the Muslims, the leader of the Hindus, the leader of the Buddhists, the leader of the Christians. So he's got to be all of those things wrapped up in one. And this pope does not qualify for that. He's not that one. He's preparing the way, just like Obama is preparing the way for the Antichrist. But I'm still not persuaded that he is the guy. Maybe that can change. Maybe somebody takes a poke shot of him and he resurrects. That would be a sign right there. But I don't know. I still have the jury's still out on that. And but whatever happens in this next month, year, maybe 2 years, I think we're going to see the formation of this New World Order, the New World religion. And we're probably going to see this individual arise, the Mahdi, the Imam Mahdi, that they are expecting, and the Buddhists are expecting the fifth Buddha, and of course the Christians are expecting Jesus Christ, and so all the major religions of the world are expecting the return of their leader, of their Messiah, and of course the Jews are expecting the Messiah. So this individual, he's got to fit that bill, and there's been a lot of talk about that too lately.
Well, it's interesting because actually, when you look at Project Bluebeam, one of the primary goals of Project Bluebeam through holographic imaging was to present a Messiah to every country, whatever their Messiah was, and then morph him into one. And Larry, what do you think about that? Because now we're getting into, is Lucifer, who we know Obama actually is Lucifer, because Isaiah says the king of Babylon is Lucifer. But is Lucifer and Antichrist the same thing? Number one. Number two, how does this tie into the arrival and the false arrival of Bluebeam? Remember, the Lord said they set a trap for the world, these rich guys, and then they fall into their own trap. And you and I have speculated for some time, well, what's the trap they've set, and how do they fall into it?
Well,
any comments?
We talked on the phone a few days ago, and I told you about a new Torah code that Barry Rothman had ran. A very, very interesting code, and I'm not hung up on codes. I've already shared one today, but I want to share this other one though because of the language that's involved in it, and to get you guys' opinion. Barry Rothman he was running a code involving Jerusalem, and as he began to run a code on Jerusalem, all of a sudden more came up like UFO, and he thought, well, this is really strange. And so anyway, when he ran a code in two parts, it's a figure A and a figure B. Now let me give you A and then I'll give you B. But this is what's interesting. And I know, Stewart, at one time you said you thought that something may be involved by the elite or the, maybe even those that's coming involving time travel or some kind of time experiment or some kind of CERN deal involving time or something. And so anyway, this is really interesting. And if people ever saw the movie Deja Vu, where Denzel Washington, he sent, they sent a note back in time, and they told him, nobody, a living body can't go back in time because the energy involved, and it would kill it'd stop your heart dead. You're dead, And remember in the movie they sent him back, and he survived and saved the girl. But anyway, Barry Rothman wrote this ARC code. He did it on April the 5th, 2016, and he made a note. He said, "Signal from the future or coincidence?" ? Now I'm going to read off here. There's 6 in Figure A. I want to read them, and then we can get into any of them you want to talk about. I'll read Figure A, and then I'll read Figure B. Okay, from Figure A, number 1. Now, I've got to remember, these came back from the Torah codes in Hebrew, and I'm reading you the translation into English. Number 1, signal from the future. Number 2, Jerusalem. Number 3, the alien. Number 4, the temple. Number 5, from Mount Sinai. Number 6, UFO. And then Figure B he ran. Number 1, Roswell UFO. Number 2, before Baal Zephon. Number 3, do not set up an alien man over you. Number 4, saucer. Number 5, rid thyself of the alien gods. Now, this is Hebrew. This is translation of the Hebrew. And what gets me, number 3 in Figure B, do not set up an alien man over you, and apparently they do in history or future history, because number 5 said, rid thyself of the alien gods. So to tie in some really strange arrival stuff, and I'll end this and let you guys analyze it if you want to. Barry Rothman at the bottom wrote, could signals be sent back in time via the hypothetical tachyon particles, which they've, a lot of work been done in that, and that involves, you're talking about CERN, and this really relates in one degree to the, you remember in Jerusalem and the temple, and Obama was over there, and there was a UFO involved in that, and then it vanished, it shot up and vanished. You remember all that? And this kind of links into that.
Well, yeah, some people said that was a fake, but, who knows? But if this is all just a setup through advanced technology, like Bluebeam, essentially Project Bluebeam was a setup of the New World Order and the horrific nature of it, because the people themselves would not rise up and put a stop to it. But right. So if we have, what did I do with it? I just wrote them down. So you have saucer, basically UFO, and then you have saucer. You have alien in part 1. You also have alien in part 2, 2 times.
Uh-huh.
Stan Deyo in The Cosmic Conspiracy had some things to say about an interpretation of the aliens arriving. You remember that?
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
Now, who was it that ran for vice president? She was a woman. She ran for vice president, I think, with Walter Mondale. She was a New Ager. And she said that she had been told, I can't think of her name, I wish I could, that she had been told that the aliens were going to arrive, and they were the ones who were going to rid the world of all the defective seeds of humanity. In other words, the Christians, basically, or basically anybody that would not accept the New World Order would, of course, be classified as a defective seed, a cancer on humanity, and would have to be eliminated. But she was very adamant that it was the aliens that were going to do the killings. So then you got to ask the question, well, why all the FEMA camps all over? Is this coming because of alien contact? And I noticed the other thing you said there, Larry, was Roswell.
Yes.
Well,
yes, Roswell.
Yeah. Augusto, what do you think?
Well, it's very interesting that there was an article that was broken out this last February, and is Nibiru coming and bringing Messiah in its wake? Now, this was from Israel News, Breaking Israel News, okay? And I was reading that article, I thought it was interesting. The headlines captured my interest. And when I started reading that, they started talking about the apocalyptic scenario involving a mysterious star or planet that would cause a lot of damage to the Earth's land masses and millions of deaths. And and so the rabbi that was releasing this story, was Rabbi Moshe Sternbach, and he's a very, very well known rabbi in Jerusalem, and and he mentions that the end of days is plainly spoken in the Zohar, and he talks of which of course the Zohar is a mystical text. That the rabbis use, many of them do, and so he basically goes on to to translate parts of the Zohar, where he makes reference to a planet, this so-called planet Nibiru, and tracking it, and they basically apparently talk about how Messiah, or Mashiach, was going to be one of the signs associated with this incoming planet. Now, the question that begs to be asked is is this Mashiach, Messiah, our Messiah, Jesus Christ, Yeshua, or is it the false Messiah that is to make an appearance right before our real Messiah returns, spoken of in the book of Revelations? And so, you know, we need to look at this very, very carefully, because we know that you know that the false Messiah comes first. He comes first, and so, you know, this theory that this rabbi has is based on the Zohar and many of these things that he's written. It is very, very, very interesting. And as I was reading that, I mean, it just spiked my interest, the fact that there's a lot of talk about this now amongst the rabbis in Israel. And, you know, scientists that were never, had never touched this, topic. Now the rabbis are talking about it, talking about the threat of a star. Of course, there is lasers on. And of course, Larry was talking about the Bible codes, where it came up, the threat of a star, which crosses with the Hebrew word comet. So these Torah codes referring to comets and stars, and then Mashiach, Messiah, coming. The question that begs to be asked is, and of course we can talk about this, and I would like both your opinion, Stewart, and you, Larry, because my opinion is just as good as yours or anybody else's, because there is no fact about this when it comes to Bible. I mean, it's just speculation. That's all we can do, speculate, and take our most best educated guess at what could happen. But based upon these facts, it's really interesting. Could this be the false Messiah that makes an appearance first? Or do you feel that this is the real Messiah, Jesus Christ, Yeshua, coming, based on the Torah and what the rabbis are saying?
Go ahead, Larry.
Well, I one thing I wanted to mention, let me add this real quick in there, was I'd been watching someone in Syria recently, not recently, but for some time, because when I talked, Sandeo did an interesting, I guess a really good stack of research into the book of Daniel and the prophecies and et cetera. And he really, and I, we'd almost need him on the show to even talk about it, but he found some really interesting original language about Solomon and some problems that Solomon developed. And, it almost makes, and I'm not trying to say something here that's out of place, but if you remember, there was a guy named Nimrod also who became more than just a man a little bit more than you know what Nimrod turned out to be, and everybody just thought he was a man, and a little bit different in the technology and what he was building, and the one world that he was building and working on, and it's interesting. But Stan Deo told me one time on a radio show that he was very interested in a guy named Soleimani. That's the term he used, which I suppose is the Persian name for Solomon, or in that league with it. I'm not a linguistic expert, so forgive me if I'm talking out of turn here, but I began to watch this Soleimani in Syria. He is a big Quds Force leader out of Iran that was leading the Iranian forces along with Assad and Hezbollah that was fighting, the U.S.-backed forces in Syria. And during that time, and there's been very little news of it. You hadn't heard much out of him, but he almost got killed. One of the vehicles he was in, they hit, from what I heard, with one of those tow missiles that take out, that takes out tanks, and it took out a couple of vehicles. He was in one of them. He wasn't killed, but he was really injured, and it killed some Iranian generals, some of the general staff that was there assisting him, and everything got quiet. Now, I've seen scattered reports of Soleimani lately working in Syria and the Middle East in the background, and working with Russia in the background. And this is what's strange now. This is what's strange. I'm just saying, here's a dot, there's a dot, and there's another dot. And it looks interesting, the fact that Netanyahu is making a trip to Moscow on the 21st to meet with Putin. And from the details I've seen in the background, Soleimani is supposed to be there. Now, you begin to wonder, where is some of this leading? While we're busy in America with this Trump card and the great election, there are things being played in the background, power plays, and manipulation of I guess you could say, wild cards. Soleimani probably is another wild card. But to answer your question, Augusto, real quick here, I just wanted to put that in there and let you talk about it if you want to. But I would think, now this is just me thinking, that if there is an antichrist or an anti-Messiah, he would literally have to come before the original, because the original, we look at it from our view, he came already and he's coming back. And of course the Jews say, no, the Messiah is coming. He's almost here maybe, but he's coming the first time. And so to me, Larry Taylor, it looks like I cannot see the return of the Messiah himself and an anti-Messiah following. The anti-Messiah or the Mahdi or whoever would almost have to appear quickly just before he shows up. That's just my opinion, of course.
Well, I think you have to also tie this in, like Augusto was saying, with Nibiru and the Anunnaki of Zecharia Sitchin. Now, I disagree with Zecharia Sitchin. I've read some of his works. He totally contradicts a lot of what the Bible has to say, but it's a good scenario. And obviously, the Anunnaki are probably already showing up. You remember the pictures of the astronauts in the space shuttle, and they were talking to some giant guy out there. Remember?
That's right. That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's one of the Anunnaki, and they're just paving the way. What's kind of interesting to me is how Stan breaks this down. Let me read from page. Oh, my eyes aren't that good. 2-something. But anyway, he says in Daniel 11:36, and the king shall. This is his. I can't call it a reinterpretation. It's an expanded interpretation from the linguistics that he studied. And he says, and the king shall do according to his will. That's Antichrist, I guess. He shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished. For that which is decreed shall be done. Daniel 11:37. Neither shall he regard the God of his fathers, nor the Son of God. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, the Son of God of gods, which is Jesus Christ, nor regard any God, for he shall magnify himself above all. Daniel 11:38. But the God of fierce forces and his protected place shall he honor, and a God whom his fathers knew not shall he honor with gold and silver and with precious stones and pleasant things. Thus shall he do in inaccessible fortresses with a hidden immortal being pretending to be a god whom he shall acknowledge. Now, is this Obama? That he's going, all you'd have to do is have an arrival, right? And then they point to Obama, put their arms around him, and says he's the man. Or it's Prince Charles, whoever they pick. All they'd have to do is put their arms on him and say he is the deal. Because remember, this is a alien human government that we're looking at, right? In the future. Yeah. It's a mixture. But anyway, to continue, he says, whom he will acknowledge, he shall increase with glory, and he shall make them to rule over the defenders, and he shall separate the weak humans by lot in the future. What do you think of that, Augusto?
Well, that's a pretty old text. Yeah, it is. And we have to connect all the events and that are taking place at this time. Who is the one that is going to be given? Because we know by now that we are seeing what's going on in the election. The elite, the world movers and shakers, the bankers, the rich men of the earth, they have the person already. They are in connection with these fallen angels, and Anunnaki. They have many names. The dragons of Arabia. They're in direct contact with these entities, and so they probably already know who the person is. There are people that believe that Obama is the one because, according to Muslim, historical data and legends, the Mahdi has to be in power 7 years as a powerful political, person. So, Obama fits that bill for sure, but does he fit the other bills? So there are many things here that we have to understand, and we have to that have to be taken in consideration. I do believe that when it is all said and done, I do believe that there is going to be a religious entity that is going to arise, whether he is the false prophet and the antichrist, or both, or one of the two. We don't know for sure, but we do know that this is got to happen, and we do know that that this is going to be almost like a throwback to the old Roman Empire. It's called the Holy Roman Empire, which had a king, and then he had the Pope, and they ruled together, the ecclesiastical and the military, and and some people refer to that as the clay and the iron, and so there are many takes on this, but regardless of which one is the correct interpretation, the fact still remains that many people are now saying, including the rabbis, that this entity is imminent. His appearance is imminent. The Muslims are saying the same thing, that the appearance of the Mahdi is imminent. And so, again, I go back to what I shared earlier, that this person, whoever he is, has to be a person that fits the bill and is able to satisfy. Like, for example, whoever it is, whoever this person is, okay, and we have to look at these things from from a realistic point of view and based on Scripture. We know that whoever this person is, it has to be someone that can be accepted by the Jews, by the Muslims, by the Christians, by the Hindus, by the Buddhists, because this is got to be a world figure. So let's say, and I have heard Prince Charles, I have heard all this, different, the Muslims are not going to accept the Prince Charles, I don't believe, or the Buddhists or anybody like that. So yeah, it's, we could toy with that, but it's got to be someone, in my opinion, that is able to speak, and the Hindus will listen. The Muslims will listen to him. The Buddhists will listen. The Jews will listen to him, and the Christians will listen. So it's got to be a guy that fits all of that. And so far, we don't have that person yet. The Pope is not that person, I don't think. This Pope is not. I mean, he's very charismatic, and he could die and come back to life. I don't know. Stranger things have happened, but at this point in time, I just don't see that. Now, he has been very concerned about being taken out, this Pope Francis. He's very, very concerned about being taken out, which, again, is another prophecy that was given many, many, many years ago about, the last Pope being killed, in the Vatican, right in Rome, during a riot, during an uprising by terrorists or what looked like terrorists. And there were the bodies of many priests on the ground, dead, and cardinals and bishops and what have you, and so that was what I believe it was Pope Leo, and maybe one of you two, Stewart or Larry, can clarify that if I'm not correct. I think it may have been Pope Leo that had that vision, but and so this Pope is concerned that he may be killed. So if that happens, okay, and there's all kinds of rumors. There's rumors that he's stepping down this year, and yada yada, all that kind of stuff going on. If something like this happens, I do believe that whoever takes over that position, and by the way, I'm going to make another statement here, which a lot of people may think I'm crazy, but I really feel this way, that when the Vatican is destroyed and Rome is destroyed, I really do believe that the headquarters of the religious system is going to be moved to Jerusalem.
Yes.
And also, I'm going to say one more thing, and again, I'm going to throw it back to you, Larry or Stewart, to comment on it. But I also believe that the United Nations in New York is also going to be destroyed, either by a nuclear blast, a terrorist attack, a missile or whatever, or maybe a tsunami, an earthquake, or all of the above. And when that happens, I also have a feeling in my spirit. Okay, this is not thus saith the Lord. This is not a dream or vision I've had, but this is what I feel in my spirit. That the headquarters of the United Nations, which probably is going to change its name to another name, which is going to be the headquarters for the New World Order world government. Okay, it's going to be moved. Yes, sir. It's going to be moved from New York City again to Jerusalem. Jerusalem is going to become the hub. And I think this is why we're seeing Obama wanted to split Jerusalem, because this is what this new the establishment elite, the New World Order, the people, the rich men of the earth. This is what they are really planning to for it to be in Jerusalem, and so they need Jerusalem, at least part of it, taken away from Israel, so that they can it can become basically the navel of the world, the center of the New World Order. And I believe that is really what they're trying to do. I think this is really what this is all about. All the talks about splitting Jerusalem, all the talk about the Temple Mount, all of this stuff. I really feel that this is why the Pope wants it, the Muslims want it, the Christians want it, and the rich men of the earth want it. Everybody wants it.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's part of this false golden age, and in order to do that, they got to have a false Messiah to lead it, who will also likewise take the throne in place of King David or Jesus, as far as that goes. But this is what they have to do. You're right. I mean, I think that's what Bible prophecy really is always pointing at, is a false resurrection. I've always called Israel over there now pre-tribulational Israel, which leads to a false Messiah in a ruling, like you were just saying, out of Jerusalem, which is what they're looking at. In fact, isn't the Pope in negotiations with taking over a good share of that over there?
I had heard that he was, and interestingly, I believe that Augusto was right on that Pope Leo, because I've heard that about the crisis the Vatican may have from terrorists, And, you know, right now, ISIS, Rome and the Vatican is one of the number one targets of ISIS forces right now. And, of course, New York City, same thing.
Well, that would certainly accomplish it. I mean, if you got rid of the UN here in New York, they'd have to move, and the obvious place would be Jerusalem. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't the UN have an office over there already? Augusto? I think they do.
Yeah, they want it. They really do want it, and they you know, there's been a lot of talk about it, and of course, nothing has formalized. They have been trying to split Jerusalem now for a long time, and I believe that this is one of the aspirations of Obama when he wants to become the Secretary General of the UN. He because, you know, again, remember what we were talking about earlier. His aspiration is not just to be the president of the United States. He already been there, done that. Now he wants to be the ruler of the world, and to be able to, you know, make decisions and to force, you know, just like he's been forcing the laws on the citizens of this nation, which they did not want, same-sex marriage, they did not want, and all these things. You know, I'm bringing in the Muslim Brotherhood and filling all kinds of cabinet positions with them against American citizens' will. He's going to do the same thing if he takes over as chairman of the United Nations. He's going to force many of these things upon the world countries, and I think that is what he has his eyes set on. And it may happen, you know. It may happen. I believe this is one of the things that we as Christians need to be praying about. Because I have heard a lot of rumors. You know, a lot of people prophesying and saying the visions and dreams that Obama wants to stay in power in the United States. And, yeah, that may be, but I really think that he really, more than staying as president of the United States, I believe that what he really wants right now is to take over that seat at the UN. And which, of course, you know, Bill Clinton, he wants that too. And if Hillary Clinton, Stewart and Larry, if Hillary Clinton wins the presidency, don't you think that would make the path for Bill Clinton much easier to be nominated or to be able to go to and take over that seat of the United Nations? I would think so. And so if that is the case, then would you know, what will Obama do as far as Hillary Clinton? Will he make the path easier or harder for her regarding, for example, the you know, the email scandals? All these things are going to be very interesting how they play out in this next few months.
Yeah, very. I got a question for you guys, though. We're not talking about this Lord Maitreya. Who is he, and how does he lead into this whole thing we're talking about? Because a lot of people, who is it? Larry, you know who it is. I can't think of his name, but he's been on Art Bell a number of times, and he represents Lord Maitreya.
Yeah, Benjamin Creme, I believe is his name.
Yes. So,
yeah.
What's your take on Lord Maitreya? Where does he fit into this thing?
Good, Augusto.
Well, he could be the one. I mean, he could be. Of course, you know, there was a lot of talk about this guy a few years ago, and then, you know, we never heard about it again. And so it's one of those things that, you know, it comes and goes. He was supposed to do an interview on major TV networks, which never materialized, never happened. And again, you know, when they asked this guy, Benjamin Creme, he said that the time it was just not right, you know, that it was not time yet. And of course, he started saying, if you guys remember, okay, a few years ago, I think it was around 2012, do you remember the strange videos that started being floated around on the internet? the same, from Benjamin, from this guy that represents Maitreya. I can't remember what's the name of the organization, but I can't remember. But anyways, they were the ones that put it out. And do you remember what that little video was all about? He was talking about Maitreya. He was talking about that he would appear. He would appear when this star would appear in the heavens, okay? And this star would shine day and night. Everybody would be able to see this star shining day and night in the heavens. And when that would happen, then Maitreya would appear. Another very interesting event that took place, again, about 3 years ago or so, 3 or 4 years ago, around 2012, this guy was interviewed, Benjamin Creme, by one of the big, one of the big guys, one of the big wigs in TV, and can't remember his name. He does a lot of interviews, major interviews, and so anyway, he interviewed him, and it's probably you guys can look it up on Google, and he was interviewed by this guy, and he asked him, he said, "When will we see Maitreya?" And he said, "Soon, very soon you will see him." He said, "But when? How soon?" And then he said, "When the darkness comes." He says, "There's going to be 3 days of darkness. Everything will go dark. And when the lights come back on, you will see Maitreya." And so, again, that was another little sign, okay? That was another little sign that they gave about this guy. So he has a very, very good chance of being the one that is going to appear, because this guy has been around for a long time. This guy has been around since the 1980s, since 1982. Since 1982, this guy has been around, and there have been newspaper articles about that and all kinds of things, and he's not going away. He has not gone away. And the other thing that was very interesting, which I thought anyway was very interesting, was that in what happened in Nairobi, Kenya, in 1988, which was, he appeared. This guy appeared in Nairobi, Kenya, in 1988, and there were pictures taken of him by the press or by the locals there. He appeared amongst nuns and I think it was an orphanage, and he spoke to crowds. He was dressed in white, and those were the only photos ever taken of this guy. But what is very, very interesting, and I'm going to throw this out there, and then I'll let you guys comment on it. I think that was very, very, very interesting about this was that at that same time, at the exact same time and exact same location, in 1988, Mr. Barack Obama was at the same time in Nairobi, Kenya, when Maitreya appeared. Now that is quite a coincidence.
So then you have to ask the question, would you not? Are they the one and the same?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say, Stewart, if you remember, and Augusto may too, I knew a woman, an author, years ago, many, many years ago, named Kathleen Keating. And,
yes.
Kathleen Keating wrote some books, and one of her books was about a coming time of chastisement when some star or planet or something came, and, of course, she included 3 days of darkness, etc. However, she also began an investigation, and I was in email contact back and forth with her originally from Malachi Martin, because she knew him and was close to Malachi, and, I'd talked to her about his death, his untimely death. And interestingly, when she was investigating or trying to research Maitreya, she told me that if you begin to search for him on the internet or call people or talk on the phone about him or whatever, she says he knows you're prying into his affairs. And she said he even came to my house one day and appeared at my front door and then vanished when I opened the door. And she said, and she became deathly ill. She never recovered from that. That was pretty much the end of her ministry, basically. I don't know if she's still alive or not, but she was very ill for a long time after that meeting. And she made a statement to me one time. She said, he don't ever look like he gets any older. And another thing she said too, guys, was the fact that she said, and that this makes me think of something else. She said that she's seen him in the presence of United States military officers way up there. You talk about generals.
Yes.
And so, I think about way back, there's a guy named Charles Hall that Paola Harris interviewed one time from Italy. Charlie Hall was a weatherman out by Las Vegas with the U.S. Air Force, a meteorologist, and they used him to experiment with what they call the tall whites and hybrid children of the tall whites. And
yes.
I'm not going to get into all that, but you probably know where I'm coming from. So this Maitreya, he may not be, it makes me wonder if maybe he is going to be an alien man, so to speak, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, that's what Stan says, that translate out that the guy is an immortal. That's all he says about him. Pretending to be God. Here's what it says. Then shall he do in inaccessible fortresses with a hidden, immortal being pretending to be a god, whom he shall acknowledge. So that's probably Anunnaki. These guys, if you read the ancient, they were the immortals, right? Is that right, Augusto? They're as I understood it, they pretended to be immortals. Whether they were or not remains to be seen.
Right. Well, the other interesting fact about this character Maitreya is that, and of course this has been published by this by whoever, I can't remember the name of the company. Maybe somebody can come up with that, but it's something Share International. That's the name of it. Share International. Yeah, they they're the ones that publish all this stuff, and they report his miracles because he appears once in a while and does miracles and so forth. But one of the things that this man Benjamin Creme said was that this Maitreya guy can become whoever he wants to be. He can change, like his attire, and sometimes he appears dressed in the modern, elegant suit. Sometimes he appears as a Muslim. Sometimes he appears as a Hindu in India. So he goes around and he appears as he sees fit. And so we just don't know enough about what is going on. One interesting fact, though, I do want to share about President Obama is that like sometimes when he has been giving a speech, there have been UFOs appearing behind him, and which is very, very odd. We have never seen that happen before with a U.S. president. The other thing interesting is that, of course, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize without ever having done anything. And when he went to Oslo, to receive it, this spiral appeared behind him in the skies, which is basically a portal. That is what that was. It's the opening of a portal. So these strange events have happened. As he has been, and of course, we can talk all night about strange things that have happened around him. When he was inaugurated, a replica of the Temple of Zeus behind him, with a white horse, the white stallion there, all kinds of very strange things. He's referenced that he was born in a manger. Which many people say it was a joke, but there's a lot of these things that have been said by him, very dark sayings that, the winking of the eye and all these things that it's very, 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 very strange. And so whether he is or is not Maitreya, if he's not Maitreya, okay, and I like I said, in my book, the jury's still out. I do believe he is. If he's not him, I do believe he's closely connected to this man. He's almost like the guy that is preparing the stage for him, almost like a John the Baptist that came, before and prepared the stage. And so that it's either that or he is the person himself. So again, we'll have to just wait a little more and see.
Well, it's interesting, and I'm sure you've both heard of David. Is it Icke or Icky? How do you pronounce that, Larry?
I think you pronounce it. I say Icky, but I think it's David Icke. He's
okay. Well, anyway, he has maintained for a long time that a lot of these people are shapeshifters, and you really don't know who you're looking at. And we can't wrap our minds around the fact that there really are shape-shifting fallen ones around here. And if you get back into the Book of Enoch, it even talks about how they took on different appearances. So in other words, they shape-shift into whatever they want to look like. And, of course, that way they can dupe the human race into accepting the evolution over creation, because after all, if they grew up in a different planet with a different environment, then they would look different. And so they take on an appearance. Well, then...
Hello?
Did we lose Stewart?
Larry, can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but it looks like we lost Stewart, or he lost us.
Well,
boy.
I'll fill up a second here with, I was going to tell you too that, talking about a shapeshifter, there's a lot of Native American legends that really talk about the shamans and those that have a spirituality about them of some type, which I guess some people call it cultic or whatever, that they were shapeshifters too, that not only could they shapeshift into other beings, but also into animals. And, there's a lot of it's legends, but then there's a lot of data that people have authenticated that something really, really strange did happen, and so this goes on. This really is something that goes on a lot.
Yeah. This guy. Now, are we still on? Are we still on the live on the air, Larry?
Yeah, Darnett said we're still live.
Okay. Well, the thing about this is that if, like this guy, Maitreya, he is very closely connected to these UFOs and the coming of the Anunnaki, and he could very well be one of those what they refer to as an ascended master, which is the avatar, and one of these entities that is supposed to be coming, one of the snakes, and they refer to them as the 13 snakes, the 13 avatars, the same types of entities that govern Atlantis. And so, there's a lot here that a lot of people don't know about. Many people don't understand, but this guy is, that is coming. This world leader that is coming is really something really, really serious, very, very dangerous, and is going to bring on a Holocaust of incredible proportions. The Mayans were acquainted with this entity. Kukulkan. They called them Kukulkan. They called him Quetzalcoatl. Another, I think it was the Mayans called him Kukulkan. The Incas, I believe, called him Quetzalcoatl. And many of these ancient civilizations, they knew this man, this entity, and he was a very bloody, very violent, murdering entity that he lusted for the shedding of blood, of innocent blood, and so this is what the spirit that he's going to bring, and so another important thing that we need to understand, Larry, and is that in order for this entity to appear, for Maitreya, the man of sin, the man of lawlessness, to appear, the atmosphere of the world had to change. Many things had to become more occultic, more evil, darker.
Yeah.
Are you back with us, Stewart?
My phones are dead, so I'm calling in on another cell phone.
Oh, it
sounds good though. The whole thing is dead. Somebody disconnected us.
Well, this phone is good, and Darnett said we're live, so we're okay.
Okay, great. I'm glad you guys didn't hang up. So that'll work. So
well,
where were you? I missed a lot of it.
Well, I was just sharing, Larry, Stewart, and Larry and I were talking about this entity, this guy, Maitreya, and we were talking about it. But I was just sharing, before you came back on, was that this entity, this guy could not appear on the stage. He probably tried, and there are reasons why he couldn't. And this is another thing that people just don't understand, is that an entity of this magnitude, okay, a person of this magnitude, like Maitreya, the false Christ, the false prophet, the antichrist, the man of lawlessness, before he appears, there has to be a level of evil, of wickedness in the world scene. The darkness has to descend. In other words, this, which is beginning to happen. The laws had to be changed. Same-sex marriage, abortion, everything good and beautiful and righteous he has to go, and Christians have to be watered down. All these things have to happen before this entity appears. It's just like it's the opposite. It's the opposite, I would say, to the glory of the Lord appearing in our midst. The atmosphere has to be prepared. The atmosphere has to be prepared before the Lord appears. He just is not going to appear in an atmosphere, in a place where the people are carnal and the people are not worshiping Him and they're not praying. It's just not going to happen. And so, likewise, in the dark side, this entity can only appear when things become wicked enough, bad enough, filthy enough, like it is happening now, and the atmosphere begins to change and sin begins to abound and, wickedness begins to abound, where the very atmosphere itself is just filled with the stench of idolatry and corruption and sin and all kinds of wickedness. Of course, now we know they're trying to build those statues in New York City, in England, and many parts of the world, the temples of Baal. And so what this is doing it is basically defiling the nations. It is defiling this country. It is defiling other countries, and basically, is basically welcoming the spirit of Antichrist into our midst. So these things have to happen before this entity makes its entrance, and I think that's where we are at this point.
Okay, now you also mentioned that a star is mentioned, and 3 days of darkness are connected to this appearance of whoever it is. Would this connect in then with Nibiru and one of its moons or planets coming between the Earth and the Sun and blocking the Sun out totally?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that could be the sign that they are waiting for, and of course the Mayans also talked about it, and of course the Hopi talked about it, the blue kachina and the red kachina. So yes, I believe this is the sign that that the appearance of the Maitreya person is imminent. This is also by the way, this is also the sign that the Imam Mahdi, the Mahdi, the Muslims are waiting for. This is the sign that they're waiting for. He says when the sun rises on the west instead of the east, that will be the sign.
We did have a sunrise in the west.
Yeah.
His name is
Yes,
Obama.
we did. Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's what they were looking for.
Maybe.
It's very, very curious that he was there when Maitreya showed up. I mean, why was Obama there? What is that connection, I wonder?
And in Nairobi, Kenya. Yeah.
And he's a son of Kenya, and we have the Kenyan prophecies. Now, it doesn't say he rises up and takes over the world. It just says that he destroys the United States, basically, and he kills the children. And now we got this, what is the name of that virus, Larry?
That Zika?
Yeah. Isn't that killing some of the kids already?
Well, it is, and even the preborn. It's given. Interestingly too is there's some rumors that is another one of those laboratory things. That's a genetic type creation.
Mhm. Well, so you can't win, I guess. Only way that anybody with decency is going to win is under the wings of the Lord.
Mm.
I mean, it's wild, really. So,
well, I'll tell you something else too that's really interesting, guys. Is in that Glazerson or the Barry Rothman's code. Remember, it said the very strange words before Baal, Zephon, and I didn't know what Zephon was, but since Augusto mentioned the temples of Baal that they're constructing in New York and London and other places, I heard.
Right.
We're now in that season where they're beginning to construct these temples of Baal, and at the same time, I looked up Zephon in the Bible dictionary, and this relates to the Zephonite peoples of Gad, and I haven't researched that fully, but it's very interesting. I mean, this is very interesting. I'm not too sure that they didn't serve Baal. But this is all the little dots seem to be tying in to where we're going and exactly what we're talking about. And, of course, what we're talking about is pretty far out stuff, but it's real. It's reality, and we've entered the time phase of some of that. I do think, guys, and I'd like your opinion on this, there's one thing that in the Torah codes and also in the Bible, constructively is the term delay. There can be a delay. Or a like Nineveh, things are put off a little bit in the future, a little further because of people's repentance or prayers, or like Augusto and talks about people praying can delay events from happening to some degree, or maybe for a while. I wonder if Maitreya hasn't tried to really come on the scene already a number of times, and spiritually. In other words, in this time space, he was delayed doing that because it just wasn't the perfect timing of the Creator yet for that to happen.
Absolutely. I believe that with all my heart. Man proposes and God disposes. And prayer. It's a very powerful weapon. The enemy hates it. The enemy hates prayer, and this is why he's he's been trying to take me out. But prayer is the most powerful thing in the universe, and prayer changes things. It does change things, and so I do believe with all my heart, Larry, that prayer has delayed the event, or at least postponed it. There are many scriptures that confirm this. This is not hearsay. There is Bible for this. Hezekiah prayed, and he lived. His life was extended. Nineveh prayed and repented, and the city was not destroyed for another many years. On and on, we see how even Sodom and Gomorrah could have been saved, but of course there were not enough people there that would pray and intercede. Therefore, it was destroyed. It was easier to bring out the few Lot and his family than to convert others. They have to come out. They had to come out, and the city was destroyed. But we see the principle all throughout Scriptures, the fact that a prayer and the turning away from evil to righteousness of people can withhold the judgments from heaven and extend, maybe not stop it completely, but extend the event. And so, yeah, I do believe that with all my heart. I do believe that the prayers of the saints are hindering and stopping this event from coming on. And I right now we are at a very crucial time in America, and I just want to share this for everybody listening. And and I want to share this to you, Stewart and Larry, and maybe you can share your comments. But this event that is happening right now in America with the elections and all this thing, this is very crucial because, well, first of all, we live in America, so it is going to affect us firsthand. We're going to experience whatever happens here. We're going to experience it. So it behooves us to pray, because if we don't pray now, we could very well be looking at, in this timeline, okay? When I say timeline, I mean the way things are now, the way things are going, it's going to happen if we don't change the timeline, if we don't pray and change things. It's going to happen. And what I see it's going to happen is we're never going to get to the elections. We're going to see riots in the streets, bloodshed, killing, pillaging, people just fighting against each other, killing each other, just like I saw many years ago. I was shown this, and we are at a time right now where this could very well happen in all over the country, not just in one place, all over the country. And we are seeing the people's dissatisfaction with the establishment. We are seeing now there is a socialist, communist running for president, probably two of them. We see the people that the establishment is trying to just elbow by force Trump and probably even Cruz out of the election process and put in their own guy. So this is coming to a head, and we could very well see the fulfillment of Dimitri Duduman's prophecy and vision that he gave concerning America. And he said that there was going to be a revolution that would start in the country, and then in the middle of that revolution, while the country was busy, trying to put it out, it was going to be attacked by Russia and China, and that was going to be the downfall of the country. And so I see this very, 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 very possible now. Look at what's been happening with Russia in the Baltic Sea. Look what the Russian planes buzzing Americans' warships. Chinese subs patrolling the west coast of America, Russian subs in the Gulf of Mexico, on the east coast. We are seeing a lot of telltale signs. And people, if you don't pray, it may be now or never. It may be now or never. If you don't pray now and you don't intercede and stand in the gap and repent, and repent on behalf of those that don't know any better, that cannot repent. Maybe we can acquire a little more time from the Almighty, but as it is right now, in this timeline that I'm seeing, this thing is coming down.
Well, yeah, there's going to be a delay. We've the old in the Dead Sea Scrolls, it made a comment that the delay was going to be longer than even the prophets themselves would understand. In other words, you come up to something where it looks like it's going, and then all of a sudden there's a delay. And it's fascinating because it's either, you're right, Augusto, I believe, it's either going to come down this summer or it's going to be delayed for some time possibly, or maybe even a year, like 2017 in the Omega Code. We kept coming up with 2017 all the time.
Yeah. I have to agree with you guys. And interestingly, we're in this 2016, 2017, and of course, there's no data coming out right now from Israel about 2018, but 2016, 2017, we could see a delay, and then 2017, who knows? But you're right, Augusto. We're at a precipice. We're really at a precipice in this nation.
The other thing that we need to also consider is this, and we are in a Jubilee year, and many rabbis in Israel believe that the Messiah is supposed to come in a Jubilee year. That's what they say. So again, the question is, would this Messiah be our Messiah, or is it going to be their Messiah, which is going to be the false Messiah? Again, I really believe that it is going to be the false. And when I asked you that question, that's what I wanted to know what you both believe. But that's what I believe. The false Messiah's got to come first, the false Christ, and so that could be very well be because this has got to be the year. The next Jubilee will not happen for another 50 years, and that one cannot be. That one cannot be, Larry and Stewart, because the Bible says that when the Jews came, when they were brought back to Palestine, to their homeland, that generation that saw that take place, that was going to be the generation that was going to see the fulfillment of all things on the return of Jesus Christ. So if we wait another 50 years for the next Jubilee, that generation is going to be too old, like 130, 140. There's no way anybody's going to live that long. So that can't be.
Yeah, only thing you can argue is the length of a generation, but it's fascinating because what could happen is that when the false Messiah arrives, the Christians disappear. If you read New Age literature, it's very interesting that the Christians or the undesirables or the cancers on humanity were simply unfit to enter into this new world order, and therefore they were supernaturally just simply vanished and taken away, which of course could be a cover for the taking of the church. Anybody got any comments on that one? It's speculation, of course.
Yeah, very, very interesting, Stewart. How does this doesn't this timeline that we're in, 2016, 2017, doesn't that really fit closely with your Omega Code DVD that you got out?
Yes. 2017 appears to be either the middle of the tribulation period, or it's the beginning of the 7 years. And then you got the argument that a lot of people have presented, and it has some merit. You can't just dismiss any of this, is that 3.5 years has already been fulfilled by the Messiah, and all we got left is 3.5 years. I don't necessarily buy into that because of the Oriental wedding concept, which appears to be, to me, a reflection of the Lord coming for his church, and the 7 days of an Oriental wedding fit Daniel's 70th week, where a day equals a year. If that is true, then the church could literally go at any time. But most likely it's going to be tied to the arrival. If that's the way it is. You can argue this both ways,
Yeah. Yeah, well, remember also, Stewart, and again, like you said, this is something that there's a lot of arguments on both sides. But remember when Messiah was here, he referred to himself as the bridegroom, and he told his disciples many, many times, while the bridegroom is still with you, you don't need to fast. You fast after the bridegroom is taken away.
Yes.
So the bridegroom actually, if we're going to think about it, he was here 3.5 years already, the bridegroom, with the bride.
Yes. Yes.
So that's another way to look at it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's how they, some of these people, and a lot of these debates are, I like you were saying earlier, it's speculation. All we can do is speculate, and I guess watch, as Jesus said, and the Old Testament says, well, you'll know after it's happened why I worded it that way. So it's very fascinating. And David Wilkinson said that World War III, when the United States is attacked and the nuclear bombs are falling, that the rapture of his church will take place.
Yeah.
That's what he saw, anyway.
Yeah, that's very possible. That is very possible because that is supposed to happen by, many seers have seen that. Also, when the World War III begins, that's when the Nibiru comes by, and also, he come. As a matter of fact, some seers have seen prophets and seers have seen the war being stopped. The soldiers looking up into the sky, and they see these things, and everybody drops their weapons and goes home and to be with their family. And it could be. It could be that this is the time, when everything is wiped out. And there's a lot of things here. There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle that we just don't know. We just don't know, and we do know pieces of the puzzle, but because we have not put all the pieces together yet, it's very hard to get a picture, the whole picture of how this is really looks, after it's all said and done, and how it's going to happen. So we know certain things are going to happen, and we know even how some things are going to happen, but we just don't know exactly how all of these things, all of these pieces fit together in this puzzle. And, of course, the more time passes, the more clearer it becomes. But still, there are missing pieces we just don't have yet.
Well, it's interesting because I don't know, there is the delay. I mean, he said there would be delays. Habakkuk talks about great delay. But he says, though the prophecies tarry, they will be fulfilled. And so the question I guess everybody has to ask is, well, we've had delays, but there has to come a time when there is no more delay, time no longer. And when you look at all of the stuff that's going on, the technology for the mark of the beast, the banks are getting rid of cash. They're punishing people who want cash, because cash is private. They're getting into this stuff of digital marking now, either your fingerprint or whatever to get cash. So they're rapidly moving into the mark of the beast system. So when you look at all of these things, the wars, the rumors of wars, the technologies, space travel, which America is supposed to take the lead, all of that has already been fulfilled, basically. I mean, we've got the technology for it. It's just a question of how do you introduce it and get the people to take it. Well,
isn't next year when they said that is going to be implemented? 2017?
Yes. Yep. So they've got the technology. But how can they convince the people to do it unless, like you say, we have martial law, chaos, riots, rapes, murders, all kinds of stuff going on? And America would not really necessarily be a very good place to be simply because of the character of the people now. I mean, look at
the FEMA camps actually is going to be where they're going to have the water, the food, and the microchipping. That's where that is basically how they're going to bring them, people to be microchipped. It's people need water, especially people in the big cities, the major the metroplex. When the system is down, an EMP, which could easily happen, a solar flare can do that very easily, or a nuke. North Korea has them. So, this is very, very possible. It is not, far-fetched. An EMP, power's knocked out. Okay, there's no power, there's no water, there's no food, there's no ATM machine, no money. Okay, no way to pump gas, no way to keep the trucks rolling to bringing in the groceries and food. So the stores run out of food, they run out of everything. People don't have any more food. There's no water. The toilets won't work. So here comes the FEMA camps. Okay, so major cities, people will be rounded up. And basically, people are going to be getting in them trucks. By the handfuls, because they don't have food, water, and they want it, so they're taken to these FEMA camps, and that's where they're microchipped, and then they are released, and they will not be released unless they're microchipped. Yeah. So that's how I see that happening, Stewart and Larry.
Well, we had that Walmart situation, and they definitely had pictures of some of the stuff in Walmart. They had one with a barbed wire fence turned inward on top of one of the Walmarts during the Jade Helm stuff. So no question that Jade Helm is part of this overall strategy. And some insiders claim, this is interesting too, that Jade Helm was connected directly to inbound Planet X.
Yeah.
Did you hear that, Larry? You did some research on that, and I think you did too, Augusto.
Yeah, and then John Moore also reported some information he was receiving. John Moore's out of Missouri, and some of the data he was receiving about Jade Helm linked in to something incoming too. So it all kind of fits together. Had y'all seen the latest report from Tom Horn, Skywatch TV? He says there's from information from a mystical rabbi, says Israel will be safe from the effects of Nibiru. Whether you call it Planet X, Nibiru, a comet, or a star, that the forthcoming solar system disturbance is going to keep Israel safe, and even though the threat to other nations is real. So that's kind of odd, isn't it? But the rabbis are saying that also.
Yeah, that is. Because, see, America, and I'm going to share this because there's people out there that need to know this, and then I'm going to kick it back to you guys. But there's people that are amassing lots of food, lots of water, lots of this, lots of, even, weapons and ammunition, whatever. But they don't understand that when these things happen, they're going to go to your home, and they're going to take everything you got, everything, by force. The government, I'm talking about the government forces, and if not government forces, the gangs and the marauders and all these people. So unless people have a safe place far away from where they live, from where everybody knows that you live, you have a safe place out there that nobody knows about, and you have all that stuff out there secluded, then maybe that will be okay for a while, only for a while. But if it is your home, your house, kiss it sayonara, goodbye, they're going to come for it. And that is what a lot of people don't seem to understand.
Well, yeah, and I don't think they also understand, how do I word this? The passage of Nibiru, whatever you want to call it, is the end. So I guess one could ask the question, what are you surviving for?
Yeah.
Ultimately, what are you surviving for? It's over. And, it just makes you wonder. I did have a lady call me, this was years ago now. Phone rang about 6 o'clock in the morning. And I answered it, and a voice on the other end said, I was in prayer, and the Lord asked me to call you. I don't know who she was, never heard from her before, never heard from her again. And she said, I had been praying as to what was the beginning of the Lord's chastisement, if you want, or warnings of the beginning judgments against America. And she said that something was going to occur soon, very soon, that all the people of the United States would see. And that was going to be the beginning of the judgments against America. Well, lo and behold, that very afternoon, the World Series at Candlestick Park, the earthquake took place. Everybody saw it. In fact, there were people, remember, and there were people even holding up signs about the Bible. And so I thought, well, anyway, she said that after that, there would be long periods of quiescence and nothing would happen, and then there'd be some more judgments. And there'd be another period of quiet, and everything would return to apparently normal, and then another series of judgments. But each time, the spaces between of quiet would get shorter, and the judgments would get more and more severe. So, and this has actually happened. It's happened exactly as she said it would. But she did say that if you were telling the truth, that the Lord was going to protect those who were telling the truth, supernaturally. And I think that's the only protection you do have. It's got to be supernatural.
Yes.
Or you won't survive. Right?
Well, I'll tell you what. Yeah, I'll tell you something interesting too, guys. Is you know, we've all seen the movie Knowing, and how incredible the ending is in that movie Knowing. And one of the interesting things was a friend of the guy that wrote this movie, Knowing, lived in Hawaii, and I was sharing back and forth with this friend of the guy that wrote it, and the friend told me clearly. He said he said the guy that wrote this movie, and they put it on. He said he actually, that was a terrible dream that he had. He said that was a dream this guy had, and he wrote that movie from that dream and took it to Hollywood, and they actually made it into the movie Knowing. And interestingly, later they changed some of the titles of that show to Knowing Predictions. You know, and then what's interesting, I've got an email contact with the guy that literally was the writer of the movie Knowing, and asked him to share about that, and he told me that he wasn't going to talk about it. That he wrote that movie from some notes he had made, and that's all he'd ever say. But you know, I've got a feeling, guys, how so many people have dreams and visions. This guy probably dreamed that, and that's a movie. Once you see Knowing, you won't get it out of your head. It's really unusual, you know.
Well, it's very true too. It's very true, because that's what the Bible says: once by water and once by fire.
Yeah. That's right. That's exactly right. And of course, you know, we have been hearing, you know, what's the name of this? The Doomsday, Dr. Doomsday.
Yes.
Ed Ames. Now he's doing his last tours this year. Of course, you probably know, both of you know that. And he said that this is it. That he's shutting down the operation after he finishes this tour. And this year, because he says this is going to be the last opportunity in the year, and he says a lot of the guys that work with him already left the country, and so he says that there's going to be a solar flare, you know, coming, and or several, and so, you know, he's doing the final tours now. That solar flare will do it, and if Nibiru comes between us and the sun, that will trigger it for sure. That will trigger it, because the pull, this object is so big that it's going to cause darkness on the earth, but it is also going to trigger solar flares, no doubt.
Oh, yes.
And so this could probably be the event that triggers massive solar flares upon the planet, and You know, and of course we already have problems with our protective shield, their magnetosphere, which is weakening. And when this planet passes, when this object passes, this planet comet passes close to us, it is going to. I mean, it's just going to dismantle it. We're going to have no magnetosphere. So a solar flare will just wipe 1/3 of the Earth, which is basically what the Book of Revelation talks about. The part of the Earth that is going to be facing the sun during that time when the solar flare strikes, it's going to be gone. It's going to be gone.
And I know Ed Dames says many, many millions of people are going to die from this.
So this is going to be like the Russian roulette.
Basically, I guess, yeah. I mean, he doesn't think there's going to be an election. And he said he was very worried about what was going to happen after martial law was declared. I think he knows a lot more than he's saying. You know, he was in the military for years, and he was in the special groups, which would have knowledge of the FEMA camps, the extermination programs that they have developed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I can understand why he wouldn't want to talk about it.
Which then leaves us the question, what are people to do? I mean, and I think the number one thing people need to really be doing right now, apart from preparing, putting aside a little food and water to last for a little while anyway, because eventually it's going to be run out, is to prepare spiritually.
Yes.
Because most people will not make it. And so where are you going to end up in eternity? That is the question that I would like to leave the people with is, are you ready? Are you prepared to meet, the Almighty, to meet God? And, is your soul ready? Are you saved? Do you know Him as your Lord? Have you had an encounter with Him? Has He revealed Himself to you? Are you filled with His presence? Are you walking with Him? So now is the time to do this. Now, while we have time.
Yep, I think, Larry, you'd second that, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, we think of America maybe being, if Babylon, America, or Babylon, as you've said all the perimeters, Stewart, before, if it's taken out to the degree that barely there's any animal life left, it's going to take something more than some nuclear strikes, because Darnett knew a woman that was, she survived Hiroshima, and she said, you people survived it. But now this, the way it talks about this part of the world, we're going to be in trouble.
Exactly. Yeah, I think more trouble than people even realize. Before we close down, we got about an hour and a minute and 30 seconds. Augusto, how do people reach you?
They can reach me by going to our website, 3Ws, theappearance.com. Just like that, 3Ws, theappearance.com. We got newsletter there. We do. They can get in touch with us, and they can subscribe to the newsletter. And that's the easiest way to get in touch with us.
All right, Larry, how about you?
Yes, very easy. Just go to larrywtaylor.org. That's larrywtaylor.org. And you can follow the news flashes there and the blog, and I post radio shows and with Augusto and with Stewart, and it's easy to keep up with me at that website.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank both of you fellows for coming on. It's been a fascinating show, and we didn't even touch the surface of this thing. And, folks, we appreciate you listening. And don't forget, you can join Night Shadows membership. And we got all kinds of information and materials there, as well as visit Larry and visit Augusto. And these guys know what they're talking about and been in this business for years, trying to warn the world and the people of America especially about what's coming. And I just wish more people were listening. Anyway, we're down to 5 seconds. So